Ever walked into a room and thought, damn, I shouldn't be here? Hey, I'm Donnie. Wow, welcome everybody. Hey, I'm Donnie Boivin, and today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and how to handle those rooms and situations what you get into when you just feel out of place and like you shouldn't be in the room at all. This ain't the business summit for perfection. It's for the messy builders, the loud learners, and the ones who break the rules and the mold. If you're ready to stop playing safe and start making noise, taking ground and building something real, you're in the right damn place. The 2025 Badass Business Summit. Networking without the bullshit. September 17th through the 19th in Fort Worth, Texas. Skip the small talk. These are raw tactical sessions where real relationships are built, strategies are swapped, and momentum is made, not just another pile of business cards. Break shit and win ugly. Go to badassbusinesssummit.com. Register now and punch status quo in the face. Badass Business Summit. You weren't made to follow. You were built to disrupt. Hey everyone, how's it going? So today we're going to talk about that imposter syndrome feeling that pops up when you're doing networking or a lot of other things. I'll tell you, growing up, I grew up in a very dirt poor family. Dad drove a rock truck and a rock quarry, and mom worked on a sewing machine at Lee Blue Jean Factory. My oldest brother actually worked at, I think it was Sirloin Stockade was the name of the restaurant to help make ends meet. And, when you grow up in that environment, you don't get an opportunity to be around, well, as a kid, what I thought was successful. Growing up, success looked like guys in suits and skyscrapers living in downtown metropolises. And that was what success was to me. And of course, I didn't know any better because years later, when I got in that world, I realized most of those people are as jacked up as those poor people were, going through the system. But the crazy thing about it was, I struggled once I got into the corporate game, walking into rooms where people were years older than I was. There were people that, had these fancier suits and cars and, you know, the ones that really got me is if I got into rooms where it was a bunch of just gray hair old dudes that had been around forever. And that comes from, growing up underneath a very strict grandfather that, things always had to be done a certain way. The patriarch, my uncle, that never saw us kind of making a whole lot out of ourselves. I mean, I remember with my uncle, telling him when I got my first really big sales job that I had just landed this new job, and he told me to call him when I got a real job. So I struggled a lot with understanding that you know I belonged in the rooms. I would walk into some of these rooms with all these suits, and I just felt like I was out of place. Like, I feel like I'd notice every stain on my shirt or the lint on my shoulders. I just felt completely out of place in a lot of these things, and I wasn't naturally wired to just go in there and own that room. So it took me a lot of years and a lot of very funny conversations to finally figure it out that most of my own head trash around where I belonged early on, my age and all that were just stories that I was continuing to tell myself. And I was doing a lot of self-fulfilling prophecies because as I thought I didn't belong in those rooms, I constantly did things to make myself look like I shouldn't be in those rooms and overanalyzing myself and the like. So what I want to do today is give you some things that I figured out along my journey to really help you understand what's happening with your imposter syndrome and then how do we get past it. It's very common in networking. Most people, I will tell you, are introverted in nature who are out networking. And when they walk in the rooms, one, it's taken them a hell of a lot of energy and effort to get into the room in the first place. The stories we tell ourselves on the way to events or around events are just funny. We know that we should be there. We know we should go say hi to people. We know we should introduce ourselves, but we get all this crap playing through our head of nobody's going to be there that can buy my stuff. Nobody's going to want to talk to me. It's going to take too much energy. I'm going to have to go across the room, and all these things that we think of that pop in our head. But we also know that usually once we get there, give it a few minutes and we actually enjoy the time and we enjoy the conversations, but we're also ready just to get out of there as fast as we got in there. One of the things you got to start doing, I think it's the number one thing that shuts people down, is you got to stop comparing yourself to other people. I remember I had a client of mine came to me when I was doing sales training, and she was really frustrated that there was another person in the marketplace selling the same thing she was selling, and this gal looked like a rock star and was absolutely crushing it. And she's like, "I don't know if I'll ever get to her level." I'm like, "What's it matter to get to her level? Let's break down what she's done to get there, and that gives us a roadmap of where we need to go." So we started breaking down the things she was doing or what we thought she was doing, and about 3 to 4 months of her revamping her marketing strategy, she started getting a lot more opportunities. She started winning a lot more deals. So much so that the person she was putting on a pedestal that was so far down the road reached out and asked her how she was doing it, and then asked her for advice on how she could find more clients for herself because the person she thought was successful was actually broke. They had no clients. It was all fluff that, all you could see on the internet is the fluff story wins that people put out there, and that's all she was seeing, not the real behind the scenes. So stop comparing yourself to people and start looking at what were the actions and activities they did to get where they are, and then how do I replicate them? You can also look at the things like how are they showing up in rooms and places that I want to be that makes it look like they belong, like they should be there. And it really will be a complete reframe for you. The second thing is understand that you don't have to be anybody to be in that room, right? So, first one, stop comparing yourself. Second one, you don't have to be anybody. And what I mean by that is people oftentimes put on this act to be somebody else when they're walking into places, and sometimes you'll meet them out at a networking event or something, but then you meet them in person, and it's two different people. The more you are yourself, the more people are going to lean into you. Okay. But I'm also going to play an oxymoron to this. For some people, you need to be somebody else. Because if you, my favorite way of looking at this is you got Deion Sanders and then you got prime time. Same people, right? Different scenarios depending on the game. You've got Kobe Bryant and the Mamba, right? You got freaking all these people that have these crazy additional personas, and they did that because that was what they stepped into to put on a show. So for some of you, be your authentic self. For some of you, create an alternative persona that you can step into. How would that person show up? How would they handle the situation? How would they be the rock star going through it? um so the third thing you need to do is you need to reframe how you think about networking. Um, Here's what I know: the loudest and the most braggadocious and the person that's trying to convince the room that they're the most successful, that they've got the most wins, is the brokest person in the room every time. I learned this over the years from myself and my own ego. I'd love to tell people the wins and how successful I was, even when I wasn't. And I found that that was like me trying to put up this shield, thinking that if people knew how successful I was, they would do, more business with me. But what actually happened is they thought I was so successful that nobody thought I needed business. So I didn't get referrals, I didn't get introductions, and nobody wanted to be around me. When you're braggadocious like that, people think you're already winning, so they don't want to get involved with your story. So the way you have to think about it is the smartest person in a room is usually the most quietest person. The most successful person in a room is oftentimes the person that owns the space, meaning you can tell that they are owning the room, their presence, their posture, how they show up. People are coming up to them and interacting with them, but they are intently quiet. They're curious about the other people. They're asking solid questions, and they're really interacting with people in a way that gets people to lean in. So, what you want to be in those rooms, after you get there, is how do you be a commanding presence in the space without, fluffing up is the best way I can put it. If you ever see a bird in the winter, they really like fluff up their feathers and stuff to look bigger. That's what a lot of people do in a lot of rooms. They try and fluff up like they should be there. All I want you to do is own and command that space and command that room so people will come up to you. That's how you really find power. Um, for a lot of people, when they're looking at these rooms and these spaces that they don't think they belong in, is they feel like, and they do, they stumble over their damn words, and they're struggling with what to say, how to get in conversations, and how to interact back and forth with somebody. What happens most times is people have not had enough reps in having dialogue with another person. So for especially for introverts who like to kind of process their thoughts and their thinking, when asked a question, they are used to taking a second thinking through the answer and answering, but they're under this idea of they have to respond right now and give them information. And what happens is they stumble over the words because the brain hasn't fully functionally come around to respond to what's saying. And so now there's this goofy conversation that happens that they're now internalizing how bad they look and how dumb they look because they stumbled over their words. Here's what I figured out. I have the same problem. I suck at small talk. Like I don't understand and don't really give a shit about the what you had for breakfast, right? I just don't care. But if you learn to ask questions, right, you will find that you can actually guide or control a conversation and it feels like a natural dialogue. So what I want you to think through is what are two or three questions that I can ask somebody that really gets them to open up and lean in and come to me so I can have a better conversation, right? But going back to do you belong in the room? The answer is yes. So here's what I know, that every room that intimidates or scares you or makes you feel like you shouldn't be here in a positive way. Like, every year at the Badass Business Summit, we'll get somebody come up to me that will say, day one, I didn't think I should be here. I was like, these people are so much more advanced than I am. They're so much further down the road. But by the time they get to the end of the summit, they realize this was the exact room they should be in. And it comes down to all the noise we're playing in our own head, all those tapes that we play over and over and over again, not understanding that all we're doing is comparing ourselves to all the other people in that room, right? When you're in a space where those people intimidate you or you feel like you're not far enough down the line to be in that room, get ready and understand this is where you're going to level up. This is where you're going to hit a next gear in your business because you're about to learn something you didn't know before, network with people that might be above you. Perfect. Those people are the ones that can pull you up further, right? You also going to be in a spot to make some cool introductions for people in the room of people that you may know that they should meet. Like it's a great place to personally grow when you find yourself into these amazing places. You know, you take a country dude that grew up dirt poor, who's now spoken on stages in Times Square, in corporate offices around the world, trained thousands of salespeople around the world. I mean, it's taken a lot to go from this kind of really awkward, kid to a guy who's impacting, thousands of lives around the world. And it's really just interesting to see how much I evolved. Now, don't get me wrong. I still struggle in certain rooms. Like I can walk into certain rooms and, I get the intimidation factor And if I were to really sit back and think about it, it's oftentimes because I am comparing myself to the people in the room. And here's the thing, I don't know their stories. I don't know their journey. I know what I've endured, I know what I've been through, and I'm pretty proud of the things that I've accomplished. So there's no reason to think that I don't belong in that room. I just have to force myself to continue walking in and get ready to ask some fun and phenomenal questions that really get the dialogue and things opened up. So so if it's helpful, one activity that was given to me, that can help you is before you go to any event, before you go to any place where you feel like you're going to be in, out of place, not fit in, whatever it is. I want you to pull out your notes app on your phone, a sheet of paper, and write down everything that is the reason you should be at that event. What are all the things that, about you that says you belong in that room? And I want you to make a list of it, right? And then, I want you to uh, go look at something like Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on power poses. And there's a way to almost hype yourself up before you go into those rooms. I even do it before I get on some stages or before I get in some rooms. I will talk to myself and say, dude, you got this. It's going to be amazing. You're going to be awesome. Lean in, have fun, pour into the people, make sure you teach them something, and have a good time. Like the more you can hype yourself up, talk yourself up, stand in power poses, the more you're going to find it's easier to walk into the room. Now, that's going to wrap it up for this week, guys. Go get in more rooms. It's how you level up. As always, have an amazing week. We're here every Monday, 8 a.m. Central. We'll see you next week. Love you, mean it. See you. Bye.